Hello and welcome back to Coast FC, the Canadian soccer podcast focused on all things CPL, Canadian Championship, and more. My name is Felipe and Jimoh.
And I'm Mike Rice.
And welcome back, Mike, who
Yes.
was away from last week. We had the lovely Alex Konge-Ruzik filling in for you, but it's always nice to see you. How are you, Mike?
Very good. Very tired. Long days, as we just mentioned, in student accommodation world. So apologies to anyone who might be watching, as I look like I'm in incognito mode.
Yeah, that might be better that way. They'll see how tired you actually are.
You see the purple bags under my eyes.
Exactly, and clearer lighting. But we are back together, the duo, to look over Matchday 23 of the CPL. A lot of surprising results in this one. A couple of blowouts that we were not necessarily expecting. So a lot of great talking points to go over. But before we dive into them, remember to follow us on all of our socials at Coast to Coast FC, as well as finding us on YouTube under the same name to see the visual side of the podcast. But we're going to start with arguably the least exciting game of the entire weekend. Get it out of the way. But it was still a game obviously worth talking about because it was York United drawing 1-1 against Valor FC. And I know, given the situation that both teams are in, it's not the result that either one would have wanted. But I think, especially for Valor, especially the way the game went, I think they'll be happy with the point. But let's start off by talking about the man of the hour in this game, I don't even know if he's old enough to be called the man of the hour, the boy of the hour, the 16-year-old Shola Jimoh, because he was the star of the show in this one. Had pretty much shocked most people by getting the start. That kind of vote of confidence from Ben Mora must have meant the world to him, and boy, did he make good on that, playing I think it was 77 minutes overall, and he was a thorn in the side of Valor the entire time that he was there, all 77 minutes of his performance. Pretty sure Phil Dos Santos called him a handful, and it definitely felt that way because he was lively all match. He never backed down from a fight. He always fought in every duel, and he did a very cheeky little flick-on finish for his goal. It was just an extra spark for York United, who have looked maybe a little tired as of late in the last few weeks. He kind of brings exactly what York United needed, and he almost could have had a hat trick had some other chances gone his way. What'd you make about the youngster's impressive first start for York United?
Yeah, it's super exciting for York fans, isn't it? Like, we know the speed he's got, and we know how quickly he can accelerate and move from the glimpses we've seen of him so far. But every time you see him, it's just that little bit more that we're learning about him, and it's just more and more good stuff. Good movement. Started off sort of as a winger, wasn't he, at the start when he was first getting those chances, but he's been brought in and got a bit of a chance up front with the Babuli. And I think like Brian Wright's been a big miss for them for injury, but so they've had to really completely shake up how they're attacking because they haven't got a like for like replacement for Wright. So it's got Babuli up there, and to be partnered with Shola Jimoh is a whole new way of going about it. But it's exciting. I think like what you said there, lively is like the key part of it, and sometimes when you're playing regularly and you try and throw something in, I mean, when someone's got that kind of burst of speed and movement, it just makes it so difficult for defenders.
Yeah, and I think for Mobabuli, he'll be happy. He'll be like, let the young kid do all the work. Let him run around. He's got the energy of an Energizer bunny. I'll just, kind of chill and through everything. So I think it works. It worked quite well in the match. I thought that he was already, we've seen glimpses of him. Obviously, he had his first goal after being on for 3 minutes, something like that. So he's sort of getting the same treatment right now that TJ Tahid got last season as a 16-year-old, kind of breaking into the team, bursting onto the scene. And another example of why, exceptional young talent rule that the CPL has brought in has been made good again and has been able to provide opportunities for exciting young players, exceptional young talents, hence the name, like Shola Jimoh. But unfortunately for York United, as great as Shola played throughout the match, it wasn't enough to get them all 3 points. And I think you mentioned there the fact that they don't have Brian Wright at the spearhead of the attack has been kind of stunting York
Yeah.
United's attack because I think at the beginning, and we'll talk about Valor in a little bit, Valor and York were kind of butting heads. It was kind of 50-50 in the first 20-25 minutes. Then York United really settled into the second half of the first half,
Yeah.
took that goal from Sean Hundal, you could say, against the run of play.
Hmm.
But then second half, they were just all over Valor. It was like barrages, wave after wave after wave of attacks for the majority of that half, and they had a lot of good chances in the first half. Probably the best chances they had were in the first half, but they still had some chances in the second half. Guzman
Yeah.
missed a couple of really great opportunities for them that could have easily made it 3-0 at that point in the first half. But they were sort of left to rue those missed chances in the first and the second half, and they almost paid for it at the end
Oh gosh.
through Resurrección. But what do you think was not wrong? I don't think anything was necessarily wrong with York United, but there's just something missing there for them to try to get those 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, like we just said about Jimoh, like he's exciting for us as neutrals watching this game, like, but he's not it's obviously not a finished article, and they don't have those so they're missing those sort of experienced players who've got that ability to just make it a little bit more difficult. Like these still players are learning, still players are figuring things out. So it's giving Valor that chance in this game to try and get men behind the ball and make those chances a little harder to come by, or they're getting a body in the way, so it's making the angles a little tighter and things like that. So as you'll keep progressing, and they're having to make all these rotations and changes around the team to freshen it up. And it's just not quite as clinical as Moro would like, and it's just one of those things. Like, I think we've got really excited by York this year, and rightly so, like for how Benjamin Moro started. But we've also got to try and look back to the fact that they were a lot of these players were Martin Nash's players, and we were and they've made these additions, and now they've got to get it all working together and see how they can progress and get players fully fit and on the same page, and being able to give what the club Benjamin Mora wants them 90 minutes of every game as well. And it's still a work in progress, and I think it's gone quicker than we can imagine. I think we have to sort of try and bear that in our minds when we sort of evaluate how York are doing at this latter stages.
Yeah, and speaking about Valor, we should talk about their performance as well, because we have, again, I feel like last week I talked with Alex about how Valor started really well in the matches, but then kind of faded towards the end, and we kind of struggled to close out games. Obviously, we didn't get your opinion on it necessarily last week, but kind of felt like it was another good opportunity this week, since it kind of happened again, since they didn't score in the first 20-25 minutes, but I felt like they were in it. They had the energy. They were gunning for York. They, like I said earlier, like it was like they went toe to toe with them, and it really felt like the game hung in the balance. And they had a good break when Hundal scored that goal right before halftime. But it felt like after that first half an hour period, for the rest of the 2/3, they were just second best to York United.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, give credit to Faria as well for the ball across that made it so difficult. Goalkeeper and defender just couldn't get there, and it made it much easier for Handel. And it was a great break. But you're right, like York were the better team. I think as much as Valor will work hard and they'll try and come out quick if they struggle to get things going, and I think they did against the way that York are set up, the way they defend. I think it just didn't really suit Valor like for being able to get the best out of what they can do, which again isn't exactly consistent. So like I think the way that York is set up was very difficult for them. They couldn't get those opportunities which you sometimes see in some of these other games where you may be surprised by them, but little spaces open up. I think it's just really struggled to get those little openings, and once it doesn't once it stops, sorry, and it slows down, they struggle to do something different, and York really did get control of it.
Yeah. And I wonder how much has to do with the fact that, Phil Dos Santos is trying to get the best out of his squad, but is sort of coming into it a little later than maybe other managers have been coming into it. And now that things are clicking, it's nice, but because there hasn't been that much in that many games where they can really play at this level, you start to see them kind of fade out, and maybe with more games under their belt, they'll be able to kind of be better at that consistency and close out the games. And especially since we have players like, I thought Tammy Antonoglu had another good match, especially at the beginning. He was bright. He had sort of an opportunity himself to get on the score sheet. But once you kind of neutralize him, as we've talked about before, Valor kind of struggled to be able to create beyond him. And I feel like York United, especially in the second half, really knew how to neutralize all of Valor's biggest creative threats. And then after that, it was just, once you neutralize those, you can just go yourself and start barraging. But credit to Valor's defense. There's a couple of shaky moments, definitely a couple of shaky moments. Facineri had a bit of a scary one with Scosi there. But aside from that, you gotta give credit because they held on. It can be very hard to basically play defensive for 45 minutes and not allow York United to score, but they did well and they defended well, and I think there's a lot of positives still that Phil Dos Santos can take from this match.
Yeah, definitely, and I think there's something to look at. Firstly, without Jordy Swibble up front, they're not quite as mobile. Charles Hundel's got his goal, good finish. Ferreira will work quite hard. Rizal's not a sprinter. He's a more creative given the ball. He's got great feet. So they maybe didn't give York, they didn't force them to move around quite as much. And they do put in a lot of work into these games. But I remember when we spoke with Phil Dos Santos at the end of last season about the number of injuries Valor suffered last year. And he said it's something he had to take into account, and it's something he had to do with his amend in training for how he was sort of working with his players to make sure they're fit. Maybe there's something looking back at that he has not pushed them quite as hard so that they're staying fit, but they can't keep up this intensity for 90 minutes.
Yeah, and we'll see obviously how they continue to play Valor, because thanks to results elsewhere, the playoff hopes are very much still alive. I mean, thanks to the results from this past weekend, which obviously we'll talk about all of them, we have one of the tightest tables I think I've ever seen in terms of basically you could split it into two mini leagues and you would have, either way, you got two races for one position that make it seem like anyone could take any place right now, especially that final and fifth playoff place right now. That's that's an exciting one to watch. But let's not spoil the fun right now. Let's go more deeper into it as we move on to the next games, and let's move on to the next game of Halifax against Forge FC. Now this one I did not see coming. I did not see this one coming. And listen,
either. They must not have realized it was on.
I don't even know if the fans at the Wanderers grounds were expecting that one.
Yeah,
it was. It's just a shocker. Like it's difficult to put into words. Their performance. I mean, obviously, hats off to Halifax and to Patrice, and I don't know what they ate in their Weetabix. I don't know what they put in their cereal that morning, but it clearly worked. because everything was against them going into this game. When you looked at last week with the 2 red cards against Pacific, Nimick and Lowry. I would have loved to get in your opinion on that Lowry red card.
Oh, it's disgraceful.
Yeah,
what on earth does he think he's doing? It's like I really like. There's lots of problems obviously in grassroots football where referees don't want to they don't want to do they don't want to ref the games, because if they're getting abuse, they're doing it for peanuts, but they're doing it because they love football and they want to help people continue to play. But when professionals act like that towards a ref, it bleeds down. It really annoyed me.
Yeah, no, I figured. I know your stance on referee abuse there, so that's why. But as I mentioned, with Nimick gone, with Lahri gone, with Daniel Lapare also suspended, and other injuries that they had and everything, Halifax had the least amount of hope, I think, at any point in the season to get a result against Forge. But that seemed to be the perfect environment for a success, because they came up 3-0 winners against the league leaders in Forge FC. And I want to pay special attention to the team that they did end up feeling in that one, because that back line, I don't think I've seen that back line ever before. Well, obviously there was a debutant there, but that's just the most thrown together. Clement Bahia at right back. Zachary Fernandez switched over to left back. We had a debut in Nassim Mekideche, I think it is. Mekideche. And Alphonse as well, who only played I think he's only played 6 games so far this season or something like that, or less. Great for the under 21 minutes for them. But yeah, I'll be honest, I saw that back line and I was like, Forge are probably licking their lips.
Yeah.
Looking at that. But no, I really, appreciate Patrice Geyser that he managed to get the team to be like, I don't care who we have out there. We're at home. We need to give these fans, a show. We got to give them hope that we can still, pull off the impossible and make the playoffs. And from the first minute, from the first whistle, Halifax were all over Forge FC, and that was surprising. Surprising, not as much that they did that, but that Forge kind of allowed them to.
Yeah.
It was so shocking, but yeah, fantastic performance all around. Giorgio Probo, who hasn't had that many opportunities this season, probably the best match he's had in the Wanderers shirts, not only because of the goal and the assist, but he was just dominating that midfield. He was running the show. I thought Ryan Telfer as well had a really good game, just consistently running and challenging the back line of Forge, really putting them under pressure both on and off the ball. It just felt like this injection of energy. It felt like there was this tension building and brewing in the Wanderers for the entire season, and it kind of came out in force in this one. And as opposed to last week, where we talked about with Alex channeling that frustration in the right way, and they did not do that last week. I feel like this week, Patrice actually managed to rein it in a sense and channel it through the right channels, and got rewarded by a fantastic 3-0 display.
Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I do like, before I go into saying any all the positives, I do like the fact that they almost managed to score another calamity own goal.
Oh yeah, was that Vasconcelos? I forget who exactly
it was. The cross came in. Yeah,
it's smacked against Jan Fillion.
Yeah, but that was the only shot that Fillion had to save that was on target throughout the entire game. So entertaining, but it was brilliant football from Halifax. They just Forge just looked like a side who had played 6 games in 6 days beforehand. They just looked leggy, they looked tired compared with Halifax, who just looked like they with the crowd behind them, they just looked like, right, we're going to bully you. This is our game. And they just didn't care who it was, and they were just going to just go out there and do it. And like you say, with all those changes that were forced to be made, still that front line, like I say, Ryan Telfer was brilliant. They're just keeping the ball. He's got his faults. He's not clinical, but he'll get some goals, but some will go all over the place. But he works so hard, and the link up play that he did, that the quick little bit of footwork to get the ball across for the opening
for
goal.
the opener.
Yeah, it was nice to see, and you can see the players starting to link up, and we've said it a few times now, like what the Halifax have looked like slowly but surely, ignoring last week. They're getting more and more into the rhythm, back into this system that they're playing. They look comfortable once again, and more each week you're seeing them look good. And finally, Sean Ray has got the monkey off his back with a wonderfully taken goal.
What a goal! Oh my days! I mean, everything about that goal oozed class. The Travella pass from Ferrin. Sean Rea doing a chopped to control it away from the sliding defender, then just jink it past the Coilelat and just passing it to the back of the net. It was it was a wonderful goal. Probably goal of the week, I would say, just based on the technical, class that it showed from both players.
Definitely, if you've got those two players on form, like it's just a handful for any team that they come up against. So if they can keep on linking up well and performing well, that's great. And it's always nice, like not a Halifax fan, but when you see Andre Ramprasad scoring and celebrating, it looks as if it means so much to him, and it was great to see for him. And they did a lot of work. Like, they helped out that defensive line in front of them, so they tried to make sure that they weren't isolated at all. Like the midfield, Cavalry and Ramprasad worked so hard, like in front of them, just all round, just like you say, like credit to the whole squad, like coaching staff and playing staff. It just looked like they were all in the zone and they knew exactly what they were meant to do, even if they're thrown in somewhere completely alien to them from normal.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, is that was a win less about tactics and more about heart, which is weird to see from Halifax and from Patrice Geyser, who we know is somebody that likes to play in a certain style and likes to play in a certain way, and is one that, I mean, sort of a thing that plagued him was that he might have tinkered too much, but that is the kind of character he is. But I don't know if this is true. I choose to believe that he kind of just went out there, gave an impassioned speech, and be like, screw everything that's been like everything. Just go and play them off the park. And it happened. And sometimes that's beautiful. Sometimes that's great to see. It's just when pure passion and heart wins the game, that's maybe that's a romantic in me, the football romantic, but I love to see that happen.
I'm in with it too, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. It was really, really good. And I mean, I think the biggest question for me with Halifax moving forward now is, now when players come back, does Patrice kind of reward this performance by keeping those players on? I mean, you look at Cale Loughery, you look at Dan Nimick. I'm assuming Dan Nimick will slot back in, but Mekadiche did really well on his debut. Do you start him over Loughery, especially the way that Loughery got sent off? Do you see Clement Bahia look like a man reborn at the right back? Do you keep Fernandez on the left, and do you put Bahia on the right? And all of these other questions. Gagnon Laparade, does he lose his spot now to Probo? Like, if I was Patrice Geyser, I'd be like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That team got won you 3-0. Keep that going. I feel like that would probably be the best course of action, but I don't know if Patrice will do that.
No, I think one of the things we have to remember is their U21 minutes going into the end of this season.
Right.
So they're at the lowest at just over 1,400. So they've still got nearly 600 minutes to gather up. I think Jefferson Alphonse, I mean, obviously you mentioned his name's completely gone out of my head immediately. Mekadiche. You obviously mentioned him. The two of them will count towards U21 minutes, I believe. Is Mekadiche U21? I've completely... I'm blanking. But Alphonse does. I can imagine him continuing, because he has been playing quite well and he's got a few games under his belt now. I can imagine him continuing with Dan Nimick because they need to keep getting these minutes. And when you're fighting for playoffs, there's still they're still bottom of the table, but there's not much in it, like we said, like you said. So there's still so much to play for. And Patrice is going to have to manage those minutes and try not to cause too much sort of the issues around like momentum and getting his team set up. I mean, Thiago Coimbra will count, so maybe he'll rotate with Telfer. There's someone that he trusts up front and trusts in games to pick up like a decent amount of minutes. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, I was doing the maths while you were talking there about their minutes, because they have 1,408 minutes out of the 2,000 with 5 games left in the season. They need 118 and a half minutes per game to clinch the 2,000, which basically means that they need one under 21 player to play the entirety of the match, and then one player to play about a third of the match for the last 5. And Nassim Mekideche is 24, so he doesn't count.
Okay, yeah, it came out of nowhere, so you'll excuse me for that.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll excuse you. Very long hours, very late in the UK. But yeah, no, I think that'll be a big factor in that. You are correct in how he chooses his team. He needs those on the 21 minutes. Maybe we'll see Alphonse be a lot more prevalent now. As time goes on, maybe Aiden Rushinas is gonna maybe feature a couple more times for them. But they definitely, now that they have the hope, they're on again 23 points, only 3 points behind Vancouver FC in 5th on with having played 1 game less, so same as Pacific FC.
Yeah, who they play?
And they play on Wednesday, exactly. That's gonna be a big game. But yeah, they have a lot of hope, but they need to now manage that with the under 21. So it'll be interesting to see how Patrice deals with that. But let's talk about Forge, because who the hell was that on the pitch? Because that was not Forge FC.
No,
that was not the Forge FC I've seen for the majority of this season.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't seem to want to turn up. Do we need to talk about them?
It's true.
They were disinterested. Should we do the same?
Yeah. Moving on to the next match. No. Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, they like completely opposite to Patrice. Like in my mind, Bobby was like, all right, go out there and play. Just
go. Yeah, we don't want to be here. Just you've got to do 90 minutes. Like, how about you 7? You do 90 minutes. I'll work it out.
Just something like it. Just felt so casual.
Just don't bother me. I'm busy. I've got my book.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's crazy, especially when you look. I mean, it's not like it's unprecedented, a result like this. If you look at, actually, I was looking at their away form this morning to see maybe if that played a factor in it. They've only won 2 out of their 11 away games so far this season. When they won against York United, I think before Nash got fired with that 3-0 win.
Yeah.
And then more recently, when they came to Vancouver FC and beat Vancouver FC. Aside from that, they have not gotten maximum points on the road. And their last 3 games are on the road. And, I don't want to make too many assumptions, but that form does not give me confidence that they'll be able to, fully see out the regular season title, because they are now 3 points ahead of Atletico Ottawa, 5 points ahead of York, and 6 points ahead of Cavalry. So if they drop, let's say 4 points, if they draw twice in those away games or whatever, then they could fall to 3rd and be right behind, like right in front of Cavalry. Like it's not just like, oh, this is a later problem. This is a now problem about this away form, because at home they're unbeatable. They've turned Tim Hortons Field into a fortress. They're at home. There's no better side in the league than Forge FC right now. But that away performance, and I know that travel takes a huge toll.
Mm.
You know, especially going to the Maritimes and everything. I mean, it's not as bad as when Pacific or Vancouver do it,
No,
or
yeah,
Valor or Cavalry,
yeah,
but still, it is a trip. It just like it's not tenable, that kind of
no.
performance, especially at the crunch time of the season. And I like have no words. I don't know how to explain a performance like that beyond just they're not great away from home. But even that seems like it's making up excuses
Mm.
for what kind of performance that was.
Yeah, you can. I'm sure you can throw out lows like Kwasi Poku not being there. They haven't. Their strikers haven't stepped up. They just haven't this season other than him, and now he's gone. It's a difficult issue. They're so good at home because they can make the pitch massive and they can create all these spaces, but they're going away from home. Pitches, I mean, you go to Pacific, the pitch is tiny. In Halifax, it feels really small as well. Like, you have to forgive me for not knowing the exact dimensions of all the pitches, but I feel like Tim Hortons just lends itself to being a big open pitch, and they can make it that. But when they go away, they're struggling to find those little areas of space. They're trying to make they're struggling to make separation between defenders and on the opposition, and creating holes around the other team, and it's just making it really difficult for them. And when your strikers aren't on top form, then you're going to have a problem if you haven't got someone who can create something out of nothing, or bang in some long ranges from the other week like Noah Jensen, or like if you're not scoring screamers, then you're really struggling. And they just couldn't get shots. No shots on target. They just couldn't create space around the pitch in the final third. And that's the issue. It seems like, I mean, one of them, but it seems for me the main issue, that just can't create space in the final third when they go away from home.
Yeah. Okay, like that's that is mind blowing for me. The fact that they had 4 shots, 0 on target, while Halifax had 16 shots
Yeah.
and 4 on target. So they had as many shots on target as Forge had shots. Just plain and simple. It's so unforged like, and I think, I mean, for them, you would think that it would be an advantage to be playing, the next 3 away games are against Pacific, Valor, and Vancouver FC. But those are teams that are going to be playing out of their skin right now for that final kind of playoff spot. They're going to be giving absolutely everything they have in those home games. So it's going to be actually even tougher for Forge than maybe if they were to face, a Cavalry or an Ottawa or a York, because they at the very least are kind of like, yeah, but we're going to be in the playoffs regardless. It's just about where in the positions. For Forge, those 3 away games are going to be probably some of the toughest games that they're going to have to face all season, and they simply cannot repeat what they did in that match against Halifax Wanderers, or they will literally concede, put the league title on a silver platter for whichever of the other 3 teams decides to take it. It was a really concerning match overall. Hopefully for them, it was just a one-off, at least to play that badly.
Hopefully for them, they all got home safe, because I can't imagine Bobby was very happy.
Oh no, I would be surprised if all the players had the same head of hair after leaving the dressing room with the hair dryer treatment that they must have done, because that was brutal showing from Forge FC. But yeah, it makes now with Halifax having those 3 points against Forge. Makes it really, really tight. 3 points off of Vancouver FC. Forge only 3 points ahead of Atletico Ottawa. The title race and the playoff race for the final spot of the season is at its most exciting out of all seasons. I mean, I know last season we said that was probably the best season in CPL. I think this one's blowing that one out of the water. I think this one is it's a real nail biter. It's going to go all the way to the end. And if there's no better time to invest in the CPL than right now. But we're not done talking about the other games, because we still have to talk about, how we got to that point in the table. And no better way to continue than talking about the third match of the weekend, which was the Salish Seed Derby. And another result I don't think most people would have anticipated.
6 goals in 2 games. Who said Pacific can't score goals?
Yeah, Pacific FC, where have you been?
Yeah.
Because this is not the Pacific we've seen for the majority of the season. Maybe for over a year, we have not seen Pacific at this level in terms of goal scoring. Clearly, when it rains, it pours for Pacific, and specifically for Dario Zanata, because he's become a man unleashed. He came in and he was supposed to be this important attacking piece, hand scored in I don't know how many games he's played. And then in the last 2-3 matches, he's just been scoring on and for fun. Genuinely just been scoring for fun. And Moses Dyer, Alex
out.
and I last week kind of wax lyrical about his impact for Pacific
rightly
FC,
so.
and it really came to fruition. We looked like geniuses after that because
pats on the back.
Yeah, exactly, for both myself and Alex, because he was integral to this win for Pacific FC. And it was funny because I was on the pre-match call with Afshin Gapi for Vancouver FC, and he talking about obviously Eamon Salouf playing for Vancouver FC, Moses Dyer, first time that they kind of face off. What do you expect? And he said, I think whichever of those two players plays the best game will win the match.
Yeah.
And he was right.
Yeah.
He was right. Just probably not the way he wanted to be, because Moses Dyer was just so good for them. Got the goal, but it was his movement, his off the ball, his tenacity. And obviously it meant more to him because it was against his former side, and likely because of the way that things ended.
Yeah.
It really showed. And when he scored the goal and when he celebrated, you could feel he was just, the revenge is served sweet for him. But yeah, just I can't believe that they've been able to turn it around. How they've done it, Pacific FC. It's a welcome surprise, I think, for many,
Definitely.
except for Vancouver FC. But
I
think it's a welcome surprise.
But it's something that they create so many. They keep the ball, they get the ball forward, and they create so many chances. But they've all been not particularly good chances, or they've been snatched at and things like so long. And then when you see them do this, it's the specific that's in there that James Merriman can bring. I really like how, like you said, Moses Dyer. You spoke about how the Salouf and Dyer trade was good for both teams, but he's given Pacific what they've needed, like that sort of. I said it about him before. He's like a bulldog. He's a bit of an animal. It just goes at you, and the defenders are under pressure constantly, and Zanata's just really been the beneficiary of this partnership as well. And they really put NU under a lot of pressure. I mean, Dyer got away from him for the goal, for his header. They put him under a lot of pressure and made it difficult for the whole defense. They really just went at them with their pace. It was exciting to see. Tika Vianu looks like he got the chances to do this, and with those sort of 3 midfielders, it gives him the chance to move. But you've mentioned Greco Taylor when he started playing, and I thought this is great. Him and Dada Luke can get forward, and Greco Taylor's just looking more and more confident each game he gets. And he's a proper out and out sort of attacking left back. He can defend well, and it just adds. They're finally finding a little bit of balance amongst this team. And it's just it's fun to see. I really enjoy Pacific, and it's great. There's lots of players on this team that we've all neutrals around the league enjoy. Gazdo, Sean Young. It's great when you see the things start going well. I mean, unless you're a fan of the opposition.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, it was a fantastic performance from Pacific FC, and I'm glad you mentioned some other names there. I thought the midfield was really, really good. Obviously, Dominguez and Sean Young, but I thought that Sami Chavars, I think that's the name, Chavars.
We're not great at pronunciations.
Yeah, that's not our forte. We'll stick to soccer, and then other people can yell at us about how to pronounce it. But yeah, 17-year-old I thought, in a big match like this, a big derby, did really well for himself. I thought that he had a mature performance. Talking about good young players. This is another good young player that's in the making that Pacific have. I thought he was very, very tidy in midfield and never backed down from a challenge. He was really he was gunning for every duel that he was in, and I thought that he brought a little bit of that extra energy.
He's getting in. He was getting in the box, had a chance in the game. Like, he was getting forward. It's not like he was just doing safe things and just putting a lot of energy in the middle third. He was trying to get both. He was getting up and down the pitch like what you expect from Sean Young, like from especially last season. Like, you've got those. If you've got players who can continue to build in that style, then he could be really there. If we could continue to get a lot of game time at Pacific, who love to give young players game time.
And they are now in the best position for a playoff spot, you could say, aside from Vancouver FC, because they're level on points with Vancouver FC. They are just below them on tiebreakers, but they do have a game in hand on Vancouver FC, so they could potentially, usurp Vancouver FC in that fifth position. And I do recall us saying
maybe 2 weeks ago,
maybe not even 2 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, how Pacific were done and dusted from the playoff days. And now we're kind of sat here with a big egg on our face here, because they very quickly started to prove us wrong now, because they're right back into it.
They are. It's maybe we are quite like Pacific, so yeah. I'm quite happy.
So you're okay with it.
Myself.
Right. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, maybe they took it to heart. Maybe they listened to the show and said, "We're gonna prove those two specifically wrong." And fair enough, you did. But do you see them now being able to fully turn around and steal that playoff spot against their rivals?
It's really tough. I mean, this game against Halifax has now got absolutely huge after what happened last week, and then Halifax putting in a great performance this week. It's going to be. It's so difficult to tell what's going to happen amongst these with these two teams. They seem Halifax had seemed the most confident, but the craziness that happens, it can just happen. Like, that we've just learned there, haven't we, that you make a big call and it will come back to bite you. I think that's
take a big swing, you can take some big misses.
But it's just, it lends to the excitement. If they can continue like this, I mean, just think how good this. I mean, if both these two teams play at the level they did this weekend on Wednesday, then what a game we could be in for. It's going to be 0-0, terrible. Now.
It's going to be a bust. It's going to be a bust. Now that you've said that, it's going to be the boring game. Well, you got to take into consideration as well Pacific. They just had that Salish derby against Vancouver on the island on Saturday. And now they got to fly all the way to the other point of Canada
so
by Wednesday.
Yeah, they should arrive 20 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah, I'm assuming that they're flying in today at the time of recording, Monday, so they can have something to do tomorrow. But yeah, the travel will probably take a big toll. Probably the worst time to have a coast-to-coast, trademark, coast-to-coast match like this in a midweek game. That's super rough on Pacific, but they can't rely on that excuse. They need to keep this going if they want to be able to clinch that final playoff spot, especially against Halifax, who are right there as well. And if they win this match on Wednesday, they will catch up to Pacific, and then we have 3 teams that will be on 26 points ahead of the final 5 matches. How exciting that will be if it happens.
I do remember, before we go on to as we move on to that Vancouver as well, I remember saying that Sean Hundle will score more goals than Alejandro Diaz, and in fact he's been struggling. Hundle's only 2 goals behind, so we'll see how we go. There's only a few games left, but we're close.
Yeah, Hundle has 5 games to prove that big call correct. He's got 5 games. But yeah, let's talk about Vancouver FC because, oh boy, they are in crisis mode.
Yeah.
And I know a few weeks ago I said the Pacific were in crisis mode, and then they turned it around. Maybe I'll do the same for Vancouver FC, but they are very much in crisis mode because in their last 10 matches, Mike, 7 losses, only 2 wins, one against Valor, one against Pacific, and then 1 draw. And their form right now is just woeful because you look at no goal scored in their last 3 matches. They've conceded inside 10 minutes 3 games in a row. They've done that 6 times this season, but half of that in the last 3 games. And they just look an absolute shadow of the team that we were so excited for at the beginning of the season, that had so many homegrown players, that had so many, experienced players, this new revitalized Vancouver FC. They are on the brink of missing out on the playoffs for a 2nd straight year.
Yeah, it's not looking good the way they're going, and Rocco Romeo, and then you just don't look like they have anywhere near the confidence they had at the beginning of the year. It looks shattered, like they're making silly mistakes, which you just wouldn't expect them to do. Like, I'm not saying they're the best I'm not saying they're the best partnership in the league, but I'd just say the quality that you expect from them just isn't there at the moment. And you can see there's the effort, but it's just, they just look a little bit shaky. And just the goals, obviously the chances creating isn't going well. And getting Renan Garcia back was important for them this game. Like, getting that experience in there and trying to improve, it didn't help. Like from the result, but he had a free kick in the match which he just sort of miskicked and go through, and it just told it was just a metaphor for the entire performance of this team. It's like, we've got quality and we're not doing it right. Like, it's just, no matter what we do, I'm going for it. I know what I want to do, and I've done something completely different. I've just tripped over and I've scuffed it. Like, and that's just how the team were playing in this game. Like, they just don't look like they know. They don't look like they believe in what they're doing at the moment.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, is that you look at that squad and you see the amount of talent that they have and the experience that they have. And it's just so mind-boggling how badly that they're performing as a team. You see a lot of their matches, and I've been going on and on and on about how I don't see an identity in this Vancouver FC squad. But at least there were some patterns of play when I was saying that. Yesterday was just completely abject from the squad. It was, there was no heart, there was no belief. And these are the games where they turn up for. These are the games where, even this season, where it hasn't been going all that great after the first 5 weeks, they've been managing to get wins against Pacific. They won 5 straight Salishi derbies in a row. They had all the momentum going for them going into this match, and at least historically, and then they give that kind of performance. And the fact that it came against Pacific and it came against Moses Dyer, that must give an extra sting, because a lot of people will be saying, why did we let him go? You look at the games since he's left, and I think Vancouver FC have scored 1 goal in 4 games. I think since he's left. I believe it was 1 goal in 4 games. Amon Salouf's, or 2 goals in 4 games. Apologies. Amon Salouf's winner against Valor on his. I think that one was another one.
Of course, went down to 10 man. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, just I feel like there obviously was something going on in that trade there, but I think they'll be a little bit rueful of letting Dyer go. At least the fans will be, given how much he's added to the Pacific side. And don't get me wrong, Amon Salouf is a fantastic player. He's still one of my favorite players in the league. On his day, he can dazzle like few others. But you gotta look at the stats, and the stats are not good
Yeah.
for Vancouver FC right now. And the biggest question for me is, what can you do? What can you do to stop this terrible run of form and turn things around when you are needed most in the last 5 games of the season? Afshin, after the match, mentioned that he was going to, kind of be brutal in terms of selection and make personnel changes, because he said the players need to bear responsibility for their mistakes, and he has to stop giving maybe some players the start that maybe don't deserve it anymore. And it could be anyone. It legitimately could be
Yeah.
anyone. I think Mateo Campaña had a good time. Despite 3-0 down, he still, or I think he came in, it was 2-0 down, or was it 3-0 down? I forget. But he still came in and had a
Yeah.
pretty good game regardless. I think he should be a starter now. I have no idea what's going on with David Norman Jr. and Anthony White, but one of those two should be given the start as well over Rock Romeo.
Yeah. Well, they didn't even get brought, did they? For the
No, exactly. They haven't been dressed for a while. You have players like Tyler Crawford as well that could come in at left back. I think Vasco, Renan, and Romans, those are 3 6s. There's no wonder that you're not getting that much creative. I think it's sad that they let Kembo Kibato go and trade for Austin Ritchie. What a trade, by the way. Who would have thought of that one? Another shocker for of the weekend in that trade there before the roster freeze. But like, they need to just give more opportunities. And like he mentioned, even to the younger players, I think TJ should get a start. I think Grady should definitely get a start after the performances that he's shown off the bench. I think, yeah, we are going to see wholesale changes from
Yeah.
UFC in terms of personnel, and maybe that'll give them the spark that they need. But even that doesn't fill me with confidence that they will be able to turn this around. And then the question is, what will, if
Yeah.
they can turn this around?
Yeah, at the moment it's bad. I mean, like, jumping on, it's Ashton Gottlieb's had this chance to create this team, and he's started off with identified what went wrong, and he was given from mid-season last year to here the chance to create this roster. He's gone from a 4-2-2-2 to a 4-3-3 to 4-2-3-1, and what he started on when Vancouver started the year so well has completely disappeared, that style of football, and that set up the two strikers, and obviously getting rid of Moses Dyer shows that's not coming back. And it's just trying to work out where to go from there. And I mean, you see it more than obviously than we will do, but the way this team is going, he's filled his roster. He's got a big roster. He's got a lot of players with experience in the league. He's got a lot of young players who got a lot of minutes last year, and they're not playing. And he's stuck with a sort of a core group, and some of those are being rotated around. But like you say, there's players you listed off that weren't even part of the squad. How is he managing it? There's plenty of forward players, I mean, that are in there as well that haven't started. So I think he's Vancouver from the outside looking in. Somebody's not there week in, week out. It just feels like they filled up that roster and thought, right, this is what we're going to do. And every so often it hasn't quite worked. And like you say, there's no identity anymore. And if the players aren't fully believing in that any longer, because if the manager doesn't seem to know what he's thinking or what's the best way forward for this team long term, then the players are all going to be going in there into matches, into training, thinking, well, does he believe in what we're doing? Do we believe in what we're doing?
And I think ultimately it comes back to that, right? Ultimately, everything falls on the manager, and you look at the way that they're playing, the lack of belief, the lack of cohesion, the lack of identity. It all, I think, stems from the same place. And I'm not here to get after Afshin Goppi. I think he's a really nice guy. I love having a chat with him. I think that he is a football man who has plenty of experience and everything, and is a good coach. But it's just, calling it as it is, the issues that I'm seeing from being at the
Mm.
stadium and seeing the games, and also, just from watching it, whether it's from home on away games or
Mm.
from the stands. It's there's something there. There's this weird, I think, tension or this
Yeah.
atmosphere that is becoming a problem, and with the depth that they have, to have so many players frozen out, not being given chances despite more consistent poor performances from people that are supposed to be reliable and they're supposed to be starters.
Mm.
I think he has to make changes now to kind of spark belief in his players and maybe even in himself, because the biggest question for Vancouver FC is if they don't make the playoffs, if they do, give it away after being 20, they still are in right now. So after being in a playoff position for 23 weeks or
Yeah.
23 match days,
Yeah.
does he go? Does he leave from Vancouver
Mm.
FC? Do they axe him? Because with the rebuild that he had, with the players that he has available, issues that have been going on both in and out of the locker room and on and off the pitch, it seems to me like the writing might be on the wall for him.
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't know if it's necessarily right, because how much is being put on him, I guess, is the question I'd have. Like,
Hmm.
this club, like, as a club, as a whole, everyone needs to be working in the same direction. But the way it seems to be running is, well, let's just let Afshin tell us. He'll decide and he'll try and work it out. So I'm not sure what his support around him in the back office, in the way that this club is being built, because part of me is unsure if the club themselves know where they want to go and what they want to be and how they want to develop over these next few years. And I think that's really highlighted by the fact that Afshin Gotbi's chopping and changing, bringing in new players. Like, there's issues around, people are getting upset, and people are going to get upset quicker, and they're going to have all these issues where we've had from last year to this season players leaving in not the best circumstances, because they'll come in thinking, well, this club's going this direction, but then 6 weeks later the club's going in a completely different direction. All of a sudden, like, I came here to do this, like, and now we're not doing it. What's going on? And I don't know if that's an issue for the actual whole club, or whether this is an issue from Afshin Gotbi. I don't know. I'm not there. I couldn't say. I imagine it's a whole thing. Like, if there's direction amongst the entire club, then the players would feel it. The crowd will feel it. Like, you'd notice it in the media when you're there talking to them. It just doesn't feel like everyone's pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, and no, and it's fair. I don't think it's fair to put it all on
Mm.
Godby. I think he is correct, and players have to be taking responsibility. And there are quite a few players, I feel like, that haven't been
Mm.
up to par, haven't been stepping up. But at the end of the day, he's the one that's still giving them kind of
Exactly.
opportunities.
Yeah.
When you have a lot of depth in your squad, I feel like, with the form that they've had, 7 losses in the last 10, at some point you switch some things around, whether
Mm.
it be personnel or tactics. But I think personnel is probably the easiest and the most impactful. And the fact that you still have a lot of the same players that are kind of underperforming, still playing for the team and still starting, what kind of message does that send to the players that aren't getting
Mm.
game time as well? You have other players like Zach Verhoeven. It's been forever since we've seen him play.
Yeah. Forgot him there.
Ben Fisk isn't the starter for them, but he's a good CPL player as well. There's any number of players that you can talk about that just haven't been featured, and I feel like they deserve the chance, and they've been long deserve a chance given that the way that Vancouver FC have played as of late. But yeah, it's tough to be able to pinpoint exactly
Yeah.
who the blame is on, and I think that's something for afterwards, for the fallout of whatever happens at the end of the
Yeah.
season. Maybe we'll go deep in dissecting each team's season after
Yes.
the postseason is done. But for now, we'll see what happens with Vancouver FC, because
Yeah.
yeah, they need to turn things around in these last 5 matches. Only 2 of them at home, but their home form has not been good, so maybe that's better. 3 away, including tough games at Cavalry, Halifax, and I let it go Ottawa. So it's gonna be a rough. Yeah,
we're hoping Forge are putting the same performance as they did this week.
They'll be having their fingers crossed. They'll be having their fingers crossed because that would be a massive 3 points for them if they can make it happen on this coming Saturday.
I guess like for Ash and Gottby as well, like in any club anywhere in the world, it's cheaper to replace your manager than it is 10 or 11 players. So that's the pressure on a coach.
No, of course. That's what makes it. That's why for me it makes it even more kind of imperative that he turns this around for his own job's sake. Come the end of the season. But that's enough yapping about Vancouver FC and their problems. Let's go talk about the fourth and final match of the weekend, which was Cavalry FC 2, Atletico Ottawa 2. And even though this was a draw, a very exciting draw because it was like a tennis match. You score, I score, you score, I score. And it felt at times like a boxing match too, in the way that both teams just absolutely went at it for 90 minutes. It's one of the few games where I can really look at an entire match and say, yeah, I don't think anyone deserved to win. I think the draw is a fair result because both just went at it, kept swinging until it was a stalemate, which is always, as for neutral, fantastic to watch. But yeah, Cavalry, they went down twice, but I think again they showed really good mentality to come back twice. But as much as you want to pin it on mentality, you just gotta stand up and applaud for that absolute Moosey magic that we were privy to in that game. What a goal from him to be able to get his side back on level terms. It was fantastic. I was like, oh, this is the Ali Moosey that we've been dying to see, that we haven't seen for so much of the season.
So much fun.
It's such a fun player to watch. And he kind of papered over some of the cracks of Cavalry FC in terms of their issues that they're having. Weirdly, again, they concede off another set piece. We were talking, the last time that we spoke was after the 4 set piece goals and the 2-2 draw with Valor. This one was again a 2-2 draw, and this time not 4 set piece goals, but 2 set piece goals. But still, they score one and they concede one, and it's just confusing because Tommy Wilden Jr. is a coach that puts a lot of importance on set pieces, and I know from his own mouth that they spent a lot of time both on attacking and defensive set pieces. But that was terrible defending on Aparicio's header. Like, he was not alone, and he's like 5'7", 5'8". He's not a tall guy. He managed to be completely alone, and I mean, fantastic, brilliant execution. But he should not have that much space.
No, it's unbelievable how Cavalry can be so creative with their set pieces, yet just choose not to defend them. Because, like you say, they've apparently been practicing them, but it just doesn't look like it. It does. Like, they go in, like, they've got big guys, they've got athletic players as well. This isn't just big lumps that can't move around, and they've got some tall guys who are very athletic who can deal with aerial balls in the box, but the movement is slow. They look like they're way too reactionary. Like, when the opposition are moving around, they're a step behind, trying to deal with them before the ball comes in, and it's just they're not controlling their own box, and they're not making it as difficult. It's strange to see, considering just how good they are and how diverse they are and how they deliver the ball into the box from different areas of the pitch, from set pieces, from free kicks and corners. But it's really weird, and it's going back to what you were saying, sorry, about the mentality as well, like coming back from 2 goals, because they were both mistakes. Like, they're poor defending off the set piece. Then it was 2 players. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Bradley Camden and Schmidt Schom, I think, could both come in to just collect a ball that's played through through the middle of the pitch, but they both leave it for each other. It goes through and it gets worked to Del Campo, who scores. It's just little mistakes that they're then having to fight their way back into games. And if they can deal with these little, especially the set pieces, if they can improve on that, then you've got a team that will just be able to control games much better. But they're just sort of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah. And that must be so frustrating for Cavalry fans and for Tommy Williams Jr. Because you have a good squad that was showing really promising form, was looking like they were ready to take and claw that first place, that league position, the potential shield position from their bitter rivals Forge. And then they just, for a few games now, have been just shooting themselves in the foot, making their own problems.
Yeah.
And this would have been a perfect time to have won a game because Forge FC lost. You know, this is a game against Ottawa, another rival. You saw the York United tie. This was the game to get right back into the title race. And you let it go off of two silly mistakes. I think that's going to be such an area of frustration for Tommy Wilden Jr. And it's so, again, it's unlike Cavalry, because before, early in the season, defensively they were good. They were just struggling in the attack. Lately, they've been doing a bit better in the attack. I think Warchowski was such a welcome, such a welcome, player to have back in that into that lineup. They've needed that focal point, and I think Warchowski did that so well for them in this match. They desperately needed him back or somebody like him back into the lineup. But it just feels like they're their own worst enemies despite it.
That's the issue, isn't it? Like I say, constantly chasing back games. And in this one it's funny because I think like Otto, as much as we want to say like Cavalry would be frustrated, and Cavalry on one hand they will be the more annoyed coming out of this with just the draw when they should have kept at least one of these goals out, and they had opportunities. Lucy looked great, Wojciechowski looked great, Dan Klomp getting on the end of free kicks. Like they're going forward, it's fantastic. And Ottawa themselves will probably be a little bit annoyed because they're just not, despite scoring 2 goals, I still wasn't that confident in them going forward. They're just not I think maybe it's going back to the beginning of the season where we got so excited about the team they built, but it just doesn't look like they're. Apart from that, I don't know what their starting lineup is going in the attacking third. They seem to make all these changes, but Lutab was brought in for this one, and I think so often players are just in the attacking half of the game on the squad. They're just no one's consistent at the moment, and they're really, really struggling and to get something going. I don't know if I'm just being overcritical. Like, how are you finding watching them and going forward? It's just like at the beginning of the year, it's like, oh my god, Ottawa are coming. Look at all these options, and now it's like Ottawa are coming, but if we can nullify this attack, then I think we'll be all right because he's kind of out of form. He's trying to play his way in.
Yeah, I think that for Ottawa, the shine has definitely worn off their squad, and I think that in itself has become an issue because I don't think teams fear Ottawa in Matchday 23 as they might have feared Ottawa in Matchday 2 or 3.
Yeah,
exactly. I think the fact that Carlos Gonzalez hasn't been able to find alternative plans, alternative ways to get the best out of players since those early weeks has been one of the biggest sources of concern for me with Ottawa, because I think Balou Tabla was the most active in this match that we've seen him in a long time, honestly, for Atletico Ottawa, but he can't do it all himself. And I love Ollie Bassett, and I feel like he's been such an important player for Atletico Ottawa, and the fact that they haven't been able to get him to be at that level that he was last season and in the previous seasons with Atletico Ottawa. And it might be because he's been overshadowed by all these other names and it's become too cramped and he's not able to become that star. I think that's a huge issue too, because of how integral he is to a lot of Ottawa's successes in the last few seasons. There's a lot of little factors, I think, like that of just not maximizing the right players in the right positions at the right times, and the game management in certain matches has led Ottawa to kind of, stumble and stutter in the last half of the season, and it's not like they're in poor form necessarily. In the last, they're undefeated in 5 matches.
Yeah,
It's just that a lot of them are draws, and they haven't been able to turn them into wins. And for a team with the quality that they have, and the team with so much promise at the beginning of the season, you expected more from them, especially with the fact that, again, similar to Cavalry, you saw Forge stumble. You saw the opportunity was there. You scored twice. You led twice.
Yeah.
And they get it away from them. Again, it's just the little inconsistencies that we're seeing from moments in the game and players in the games, in certain games, that, makes it a little bit worrisome for Ottawa that they can, pull off. It's not a big comeback either. You're 3 points behind Forge.
Yeah, exactly. So, we are being, people like say, like, yeah, come on, they're second, they're right behind.
They're second place.
Like, yeah, like this is a good year. They like, but you have to accept the fact that people will be more critical of you when you've created this roster, like, and
when you created a super team.
Exactly. Like, so you've got to accept the fact that you're expected to do so well, and Carlos Gonzalez needs to realize that you played one sort of football. It worked. 1 year it worked. Second year we miss out, and all of a sudden we start giving away goals late in games, and we lose out on the playoffs. Now we've given you this opportunity. Go out there and try and be a bit more offensive, but tighten up as well. And that's not happening. Like, it's just, when you've been given all of these tools, you should be able to be a little bit more convincing. I'm not saying you have to be running away the league. We kind of thought they might at the beginning of the year. I'd like to try and bring back normality. We're all humans. Like, the issue's going to rise, but he just looks now over this past period. It's like, well, you seem to have lost a few ideas. You're not really able to change things up. And if it wasn't for the fact that you've got these individuals, where would you be? Like, there would be mistakes. And if they hadn't have spent all this money and brought in all these players so a lot of that maybe falls back onto him again, for what's happening in this squad, like how they're approaching games.
Yeah. Because, you mentioned second place. It's not like they're having a terrible season, but it's, you need to be able to perform. That's the biggest thing. And it's not just perform in the first round of, the first quarter of the season or the second or third. It's throughout the entire season. And it's giving a little bit like Pacific from last season when they started to have a stumble, where they had a lot of really good players. They had a lot of great depth, but even through rotating through things, it just felt like there was this imbalance in the squad, and Merriman was struggling to find that balance in the squad. I think Cargo is kind of struggling to find that balance in that squad right now, because it's that they are scoring goals, but they can't close out games, which with a team as good as Ottawa is and should be, is just kind of unacceptable at this point, especially at this point in the season. And it kind of, bring on to our final point before we close up, begs the question, will either of these teams be able to catch up to Forge, given that for Cavalry, they're their own worst enemy, and Ottawa have been struggling to find consistency in their players? Do you think that either team has what it takes right now to take Forge off of that mantle, given Forge's away form and the fact that they have 3 away games to end the season?
Yeah, in theory, yeah, but I think just how badly Forge played this weekend will be a little bit of a turning point for that team. Like, I think they will be kicked into gear more, and teams will be a little bit more frustrated that they didn't take more advantage of the fact that Forge have been dropping these points throughout the year. My biggest issue with these two teams is that they are, like you say, their own worst enemies at times, and I think that they could stumble through that. And both of them, with the quality they've got, like both teams are really, really good quality. But you could also see them just getting knocked out of the playoffs by a stupid, like, just a poor performance. So it's just, I want to believe in both teams, but I'm really struggling at the moment. Like, despite the fact of how well they're doing, I still use back Forge like each time.
Yeah. I think I'm in the sort of same boat where any of these three teams could clinch it, and that's what makes this season so exciting right now.
Yeah,
but I still think Forge have that a little bit more to kind of see it out, but it really will depend on their response from this, loss to Halifax. I fear for Vancouver FC because Forge are going to be coming back with a vengeance to make up for that terrible performance. But if they can get all 3 points from the match against Vancouver, then I think that they'll be in a good spot to kind of see out that first place. But you never know. There's still 5 matches left. There's still 5 weeks left. That's at least 5 episodes of Coast to Coast. So we'll see what happens. We've seen already that whatever calls we make, 3 episodes later, we will look back on it in shame, given that we've proven completely wrong. So we might have that happen again in 3 weeks' time. So tune in to find out, see whether we will have even more eggs on our faces. But that is all for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow us once again on all of our socials at Coast to Coast FC to let us know your thoughts. Do you think that we're going to have some bad takes in the future once more? Or do you think these takes are going to become bad in a few weeks' time? Or do you agree with the points that we've made? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. But until next time, I'm Felipe and Mike.
And I'm Mike Rice.
And this has been Coast to Coast FC, signing out.